In this video, I'm going to be teaching Kat, a traditional artist, how to do a digital animation with the help of our sponsor, Huion. So I've had a couple of years studying animation, but Kat, however,
zero, nada, nothing.
Nothing at all. So I'm going to be the teacher for today, and I'm going to teach you some really, really basic animation fundamentals, just using Photoshop because it's really quick and easy to do it on there.
Maybe you guys can learn along with me.
Yeah. So I think for today, it would be easier to start with a sketch of what you want to animate, and then we can add some animation effects to it later.
Oh, I like that. My brain makes more sense of that than anything else.
Yeah, okay, good.
Awesome.
So while you're doing your sketch, just keep in mind what elements we can move and like add animation to, I guess.
So I'm going to do something really simple, something really cute.
Yeah.
Thinking I wanted to harken back to my little night mouse that I did in our watercolour video.
Oh my god, yes.
With Ariel. I kind of want to keep it as simple as possible, also in that it will be easier for me hopefully to animate.
Yeah, that is a good place to start. Definitely keep it simple at the start, and then we can always add more later.
So I'm going to add as many, I guess, wind elements as possible.
Okay, like what?
I really want everything to interact in the same wind, if that makes sense. So grass, clouds, flag.
I think you've got some like really nice opportunities to add like a gentle sort of sway to everything.
Yes.
And it'll look really like nice.
I like that. It'll give like a sense of peace and calm.
We also want to loop your animation today so it can just play forever. So these are really good elements for looping.
I like that. So dumb question with the clouds, like drawing it and I've realized like I've got them here, they look good in the image, but what am I doing?
So when you've got like these elements that are gonna float across the sky like clouds, you have to keep in mind that there will be some point in the animation where the whole cloud is going to be visible. So you can't draw the clouds that are sort of cropped off the edge of the image like you've done. If we just like take those clouds, move them to the center of the image and make sure that they are whole and complete and they can stand on their own, then we can animate them without worrying about any like cropping issues.
Okay, I'm glad I asked.
Okay, good. I'm actually quite glad that you pointed it out.
I really wanted to add like a little dandelion seed.
Flying in the wind,
yeah.
like flying away. We can absolutely do that. I'll just make sure that you draw the dandelion flower and the dandelion seed as two separate layers so we can animate them separately. So we'll have like the dandelion seed coming out from behind the dandelion.
Okay.
And that will make it look like it's coming from it, but you don't have a weird clipping when it appears, you know, it just sort of majestically flies from behind it and it looks quite natural.
Okay, I like that. All right, thank you.
But you'll see this all in the animation phase. You'll see what I'm talking about.
So I really struggle with doing flat color. I hate it, it stresses me out, I don't like it.
That's really interesting that you would say that because normally animation is all flat colors and that makes it so much easier to animate because when you simplify it, you don't see any mistakes in like textures and stuff, especially with 2D animation, which is what we're doing today.
What I really want to do is harken back to something that I really enjoy doing in my spare time, which is like paper cut artwork. I really want to start looking at a lot of the texture brushes and element brushes that we have in the Jazzapack.
Yeah.
So on the mouse, I think I'm going to make him a bit watercolory. I'm sure there's a much easier way of doing this if you know digital art better than I do, but I am thinking of this in like making a whole page, like a piece of paper of texture.
Oh, okay.
And like, you know, like with like, for example, on the mouse, like placing the pinks semi where they would go anyway, but then cutting out what I'm using.
Literally like you're cutting out a piece of paper.
Yeah.
To like stick on.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm sure there's probably an easy way of doing it, but traditional brain works traditionally.
It's like digital collaging or something.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I love it.
I've had so much fun using all of this the element and texture brushes within the Jazzapack today.
Yeah, I'm glad you've gotten to like exploring them finally.
I'm still having so much fun with them. But I'm really excited to animate this now.
Yeah, well, we'll just finish up all your details and colouring and then we'll get started. I'm absolutely loving the detail of your texture and like the brightness of your colours. Like, what's your secret?
Thank you. I'm actually on the new Huion canvas that we've got in the studio. And I'm really enjoying using it. It's so much fun. And I think it's really helping with all of that.
Well, I'm so glad that you mentioned your Huion Canvas Studio 24 because Huion is actually the sponsor of this video today. Now, before we jump into animation, I want to tell you guys a little bit more about our sponsor Huion because they have provided us with the most amazing drawing tablets, and having the right tech is so important when you're doing animation. So in a couple of days, on July 11th to 12th, Amazon is having an amazing Prime Day sale,
If you're an Amazon Prime member, you get up to 26% off Huion products.
including the Canvas 13, which is usually $259, but has actually been reduced to $191.
Sweet! The Canvas 13 is less than a kilo, it's less than 12 millimeters thick, and now you can charge it from a USB-C cable, so it's way more convenient.
It has an amazing full HD display with anti-glare glass and 88% NTSC color gamut, which is super important when you're drawing.
The pen pressure sensitivity levels are up to 8,192.
And their pens are battery free. But if the Canvas 13 isn't quite up to your standards, you can go for the Canvas Pro 16, which is the next level unit.
It's usually $599, but for Prime Day sale, it is $479.
That means you get over $100 off.
It's the industry's first 16-inch 2.5K display, which is a premium level display. It has 16.7 million display colours and 1200:1 contrast ratio.
This means it has an incredible range for ultra vivid cartoons or super subtle realism, or even animation.
It also comes with PenTech 3.0 for an amazing drawing experience. It's got heaps more features and it's an amazing product, so check it out on Amazon for the Prime Day sale, and you can find that at the description below.
And get that amazing discount.
Yeah.
So now let's use our amazing Huion devices to do some animation.
So Alicia, we haven't actually seen anything that you've done yet.
Yeah, so before we animate your one, I am going to do an animation of my own and tell you guys a few tips and tricks that I've learned at uni and over my career, I guess. So we are using Photoshop today, which is like the most basic animation software that you can use, but it's a really good place to start because it's really simple. So my basic idea for this animation is it's just going to be a frog jumping on a lily pad, and it's going to be a really simple looping animation. So in Photoshop, there are two main ways to create an animation. I'm going to be using the frame animation where I get to draw all the in-betweens, but Kat, I think we're going to try something different with you so we can see both types of animation in Photoshop.
Oh, so we can learn two different styles today?
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
So for my frog, I'm keeping him super simple to begin with, just so I can focus on the movement. He's literally just a blob at the start. So I always start my animation with the key poses of my character. And in this case, I wanted him to sort of squash down in anticipation and then leap up and just hold for a second and then land back down on the lily pad. And I was just gonna have that loop over and over. But just lifting this blob up and placing it back down, it's not gonna be enough to convey that movement and gravity that I want. So before leaping him up, I squash the blob shape and then I stretch him as he jumps up in the air. And you can see that I've labeled my layers as squash and stretch. It's kind of like smear frames where you kind of like stretch the character in the direction that it's moving, and it kind of gives like a motion blur effect. So now that I've got my blob shape jumping up and down like I want him to, it's time to actually turn him into a frog. So I gave him some eyes and a big tummy and a very simple nose, but also some legs as well. And legs are really important because they give him a little bit of secondary motion. So when he jumps up, his legs sort of trail behind him, but then when he falls back down, they sort of fly upwards and the other way, and that sort of shows which direction he's moving in. Because this is an animation, it's really important to keep it simple. So I can't do my usual painterly style. I decided to keep this frog cell shaded. So he's got very flat colors and very simple lines, and I think that really suits this style of animation. It makes them look really cartoony. So because I've got a really symmetrical composition here, I decided to flip my canvas a couple times just to make sure that the proportions of the frog were symmetrical, but also still had that hand-drawn, imperfect sort of feel. So Kat, for your animation, we're going to do something a little bit different, and we're going to use the video animation function.
I've never seen this before. I've definitely seen like the keyframe section.
Yeah, so for this method, it's going to be a lot less drawing for you, which is
Excellent.
good, and it's going to use tweening instead of in-betweening, which basically means that you take what you've drawn and you just move it rather than have to redraw it in a different place.
So what element should we start with, do you think?
So I think today we're going to start with the grass, just because I think it'd be really easy and fun to have it like sway in the wind a little bit.
Yeah.
So the first thing that you want to do that is specific to Photoshop is turn it into a smart object. You'll see in the layer panel there's a little symbol that looks like a piece of paper or something. And that's just turning it into a smart object, which means that we can move stuff around without affecting the artwork.
What happens if you don't make it a smart object?
Then you won't get to rotate it and do all these fun like position changes with it.
Okay. So I think my favorite part about animating the grass is that it's all subtly like doing it in clumps. So they're all moving slightly differently but also in the same direction.
You did it yourself. It wasn't like automated, so
Yeah.
it is a little bit imperfect, but that's kind of what you want in this case.
When I very first started trying to rotate them, I couldn't work out what I'd done wrong. And then I realized my anchor point was right in the middle of the picture.
Because they like sway from the ground.
From the
They're like
base.
planted in the ground, right? So you want to make sure
They're
that
what?
they like. I mean, it's cropped out. There might not be, but
So I did eventually work out that my anchor point should be where the grass is anchored. So that was something that maybe if you're having trouble when you're trying to use this as an example, check your anchor point.
yeah, the keyboard shortcut is using Alt. So if you just hold down Alt and then you can move your anchor point. Hopefully that makes it a bit easier for you guys.
So I know I added like the seed looked really good for me in the still sketch, but once we started looking at animating it, I was like, maybe we could just get rid of it. Like it's a little bit
No,
daunting.
It's the cherry on the top. What are we going to do without it?
So Alicia helped me a lot with this one.
It was actually a lot easier than you would expect it to be. You just kind of add keyframes, move it to where you want to go. In this case, it was sort of upwards and to the right. And you just give it a little bit of a rotation as well, as if it's sort of flying around.
Being pushed around a bit by the breeze.
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought the clouds were going to be maybe the easiest of everything.
Yeah, because you don't have to rotate the clouds, you just sort of move them across the screen.
Except when you have me in charge of doing things, I do them the wrong way. You guys will notice about halfway through the clouds here, they're going the opposite direction to the direction the flag's going in.
Ugh, someone's gonna get really mad about that in the comments.
And I got like really like, oh no, maybe we should just get rid of the clouds because I was thinking it was like too hard. But yeah, Alicia showed me you can just sort of like essentially flip them.
The clouds were a little bit harder to do because they're on a loop, but you need a start and stop place for the loop. And it couldn't be when the clouds were off screen because they were all like on screen at different times. So instead we duplicated the layer and had 2 cloud layers for each cloud and had one sort of coming into the shot and one leaving the shot. And that sort of made for a more seamless looping animation.
So I was thinking about leaving it there, but then I was like, no, the flag is like right there, it's bright red. You can't just
It's
leave
too
it.
still. It doesn't make sense.
I initially thought I was going to do some keyframing like Alicia was doing. And then I looked at how I'd first drawn it and I was like, no, my brain's not functioning enough to work out how it would unfold in ripples like that. So Alicia showed me that I could just kind of cheat it a little bit. So we've just got him like a little wiggle flag.
So even though these like little minor things are really, really small and subtle, I think it adds a lot of life to your artwork.
I'm really happy with how it turned out. I can sort of like hear in the distance, you know, like the breeze blowing.
We should add some sound effects.
Oh, editors. So thank you so much for teaching me animation today.
Anytime.
I've had so much
How
fun.
did you find it?
I need to do it like 10 more times so it actually stays in my brain.
Yeah.
But I am really keen to like maybe play with it some more.
I'm glad you learned some things. I hope our viewers have learned some things as well. But if you haven't learnt enough, you can definitely check out our Patreon because we've done a few like animation behind the scenes on there. So definitely check that out if you're interested in more.
Note to self, join the Patreon. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys.
And last but not least, thank you to our amazing sponsor, Huion.
We use Huion tablets for all our videos, so yeah.
Yeah, even just drawing, not even animating.
Yeah, so big love. Thank you, Huion. I guess that's it for the video. So
See you in the next one.
insert out. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.